Hey guys, I'll be showing you how to access nested arrays on multiple levels using HTML and JavaScript. So, I'll just create a nested array within a nested array. And we'll just call these fields name. We're going to have objects within the array. And within that object, I'm going to have name. Let's just put my name. And then the sport that I play. So we're going to leave that empty for now, and we'll have multiple of these objects. Alright, so I'll have soccer and rugby, and for John I'll just put basketball. And footy. So if I wanted to access any of these sports, we'll just use the console for this. We'll call the array name, and then we're going to open up with square brackets, and that allows us to get the items within that array. But we're going to put the index of a certain item, so the first one would have an index of 0, and the second one would have an index of 1. So to access my sports, I would have an index of 0, and we're going to access which property that we want to use. So that's sports. And then if I wanted to get the first item, again we open up with the square brackets to access the items within an array. And if we wanted to see the first sport, we'll see in the console that it says soccer. And if we wanted to access the second sport, then we'd use an index of 1, and that gives us rugby. And to access John's, we would use an index of 1, and accessing the second item as well, so the second sport, which would be footy. But if we were to have an object within this array, inside the sport, and let's say the object is telling us the team that he plays for, so we can have the sport that he plays and the team that he plays. So we can have basketball, and the team that he plays for would be actually in an array. So we're going to have a nested array within this nested array, and we can say the Hawks and the Panthers. So that's the fields we'll just have for now, and we're going to make sure that it's exactly the same for all objects, and also it's separated by a comma. And for this team we'll just say the Sharks and the Lions. So now the console is going to give us undefined because we are now accessing further nested array information. So we're going to break this down again. If we wanted to access the first item within this array, which is these small objects, then we would open up with a square bracket. Now, for this array, it'll give us an object because that's the first item within this array. Now we want to go further into this array, into the sports property. So now if I write sport, it's going to give us this array of an object for the sport, basketball, and the teams, which is the Sharks and Lions. So right now, we see that it gives us the correct object of basketball and the team of two teams, Sharks and Lions. Now if we wanted to go further and access this team, this team array with the information inside it, we now know that it's an array, and we want to access the first object. So how do we do that? We open up with more square brackets. So because there's only one array or one object inside this array, it's just going to be 0. And what that should give us in the console, if we reload, is the inside, the object within this sports property. So now we want to go further into this object and access the team property so that it gives us the array. And using the same format as before, if we're accessing a property, then we do dot the property. And if we're accessing an item inside an array, then we'll open up with square brackets. So this gives us the array with sharks and lions, as you can see in the console. And if we wanted to get a certain team within that array, then again, we open up with square brackets. So this is how you access multiple nested arrays on multiple levels, where the nested array is within a nested array, which is also within a nested array. And this can go on for as many as you want. However, for a more practical example, I'm going to be using these select options. So I'll show you what I mean. So first I want to get the IDs of these three select options. So we'll just call this name, select, and I've put them empty, and I'll show you why. So we're going to have name select. So here I'm just creating variables to hold the select options. And the reason for that is I'll be using the array that I've created above to input options inside these select options, selects, but not manually. So created in JavaScript, but based on the information within nested arrays within nested arrays. Okay, so I have the correct IDs here. Now what I want to do, so as I showed in the for each or accessing nested array values previous video, I'm going to use a for each to access items within this array. So first we call that array, and we're going to use for each so that we get each of the items within this array. So this for each is going to run twice for each of those two objects that I've created. And for each of them, I'm going to open up with a function and store I, which is the item. So this is going to hold the object. Now, the next step we want to do is create options and that hold the name value. So if we console log what I is, it's going to give us these objects. And to access a property, we use dot and the property name. So the property name is I.name, so that should give us I.name, so that should give us Sonics and John. So that's the options that we want to create and put it into this select option here. So how we do that, we create an option using create element. And then we're just going to put the value as I.name. So now we want to, we also have to replace the text content with I.name and append this option into this select. So we use the variable that we've placed up here, and every time we create a new option, which is going to be twice, we're going to push or append as a child to the select option. So we grab this value here, append child, and we'll see on the screen on the right that it gives us Sonics and John. So this is working fine. Now the next step is showing the sports. So we can remove the console here. And how we do this is we want to for each of I, so we can use the same for each within here, but instead we're going to use I because we're accessing the object, but now we want to get to the sports array here. So again, we do I dot sports because we're accessing the property, dot for each because we're going to go through each of the objects within this sports. Now for each, then the same function, but this time it's going to be, let's put the letter A. This will give us, if we console log the value of A, the object within here and the object within here. If we reload this again, it gives us the correct objects. And I've realized that I've put the same sport, so we'll just put rugby here so that we know the difference between these two objects. And the team has an array of sharks and lions, which is correct for my object of the sports that I play and the teams that I play, and hawks and panthers for John. But the value we want is the sport that we each play, so we can access this value by calling on that property called sport, a.sport. We console log this value and it should give us rugby and basketball. So these are the two values that we want to put in the select. So we again create an option. And replace these values with a.sport as we console logged before. And we also need to replace the text content with the value, and it's not done yet because we also need to append child to the select. Append child option. So now we see that there's two people within the array, and we see that these are the sports that each of these two might play. And now we just need to see some of the teams that these two people play for. So again, we want to go inside this for each because it's a nested array. And if we console log A again, it gives us the property name of team, and we want to access the array's values. So just like before, we call a property name using dot and then the property name, and that gives us the array that we want. And we want to access each of those items individually. So we do that by a.team, and then again, for each. And we'll put the letter B, and just like before, creating an option. And I'll just copy paste the, because it's a very repetitive code. But the value instead is going to be B and just B, because we're not accessing any inner objects, it's just one item. So option is equal to B, the value is equal to B, as well as the text content. And what we want to do is append it to the team select. So if we look on the side, it gives us 4 of the teams that me and John play for, and the 2 of the sports that we play according to the nested array values in this array. So this is how to access nested array values on multiple levels. But for the next video, I'll be showing how to use an index, where if I click on John, it only shows the sport that he plays, and as well as the team that he plays. So we're just making those select more related to the object's information. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.